Hello and welcome to another episode of Blackboard Wednesday. I'm your host, Jonah. This is where we cover music theory, concepts, ideas, and other music tutorials. Last week I covered how to build a major scale. I'm going to kind of take it back a little bit and explain what are half steps and whole steps and how to identify them and how to play them on a keyboard as well. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so what are steps? Well, a musical step, to put it simply, is just playing the next note over, and we can divide that into half steps and whole steps. A half step being smaller, obviously, than a whole step by half. So what is a half step? A half step is literally just the note right next to it. So if I'm playing C, the next note would be C sharp, would be a half step, and the next note from C sharp would be D, which is another half step. And just keep going, and you keep going up chromatically. So if I'm at E, the next half step would be F. So a whole step would be two half steps, or if I'm at C, a whole step would be C sharp to D. So C to D would be a whole step, and then D to E would be another whole step. Now where it gets a little tricky is in between. It's E and B, because there's no black key in between. So a whole step from E would be F sharp, and a whole step from B would be C sharp. So that's kind of the definition of what a half step and a whole step is. There are also musical leaps or jumps. So instead of playing the note right next to it, if I'm at C, a jump or a leap would be either to it could be a small leap to E, or a big leap to another C, an octave, or any other distance, as long as it's not the note right next to it. So a half step could also be called a minor second interval, and a whole step could be a major second interval. I'll get more into intervals later on in another episode. We'll cover just intervals, major, minor, up to an octave. And I'll play them on the piano so we can hear how they sound as well, because that's a major part in ear training, is recognizing intervals and pitches. So for our first example, if we're starting at C and we go up to C sharp, that would be a half step. So I'm going to write in a little H for a half step, because it's a small interval. It'd be an interval of a minor second. I'm just moving up one note, so literally the next key right next to the C. In our second example, we're starting at D and we're going over to E. So I'm skipping over D sharp and going to E, which would make it a whole step. And then for the last example, if I'm starting at B right here and I'm going over to C, that is the key right next to it, so that would be a half step, because there's no black key in between. So that's where it gets a little tricky, in between B and C and E and F. This also works for going backwards, so if I'm starting, say, here at F sharp and I go down to F, that would be a half step. And say if I'm starting at E and I'm going down to D, that would be a whole step. So it either works going down or up on the keyboard, but either way it's going to be a half step or a whole step. So yeah, hope that kind of clears up a little bit on our previous episode on how to build a major scale. It's a fairly simple concept: half steps, whole steps. And then, like I said, in a future episode, I'll cover intervals and how they sound. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and give my video a like. And I will see you next week. Thank you.